All right, Porsche gents, it's time to mess up my car again. I've had this for a long time. This has been part of the plan from the beginning. I have two loves. One for the AWE exhaust and second for the Dundon exhaust. These are exhaust iterations, number like, I don't know, 16 and 17 on my Porsches. If you go back to the old days, I tried many different projects, or many different exhausts on different projects to figure out what's the way to go. You know, did experiments on if the valves are connected or disconnected. And so my preferred setup on a 991, this is a 991.2, but .1 and .2 version of a GT3 or GT3 RS, they're pretty much the same, they sound the same, is to have a side muffler delete. You need to have the valves. If you don't do valves on these cars, they just sound really boomy and not good. The only combination that worked with the valves disconnected is the really simple Sharkworks center bypass, which looks a lot like this AWE section here. And so the combination is to leave the valves connected and normal operation, and then to delete the sides and center muffler. That's been the combo for me. And so what's been on the car since I got this, 2 Novembers ago, so I've had it, a year and a half, coming up on 2 years now. The AWE center section has been on the car, and what it is, just to cue you in, it's a side muffler and center muffler delete, valved. So you have this valved section, and then I have the stock headers on the car. I know this is backwards, but you get the idea, this header over here. And so the stock catted headers with this simple section removes those big bulky side mufflers, and this exhaust sounds freaking incredible. Like, it's perfection. There's really no boomy drone, there's no resonant drone with this. It's pretty violent, you know, it's a pretty aggressive exhaust. But it gets rid of any of the boominess or droniness. It's for whatever they make the length of the pipes and however they made the cross section with. You know, AWE is sort of the masters of drone and drone elimination. And the tips are okay, these diamond black tips. So if you're looking for the inexpensive exhaust option, this is it. I doubt it really makes any power. If it does, it's negligible. But it sounds fantastic, super aggressive. You operate the valves like normal, and you lose a bunch of weight off the back of the car. And this costs what, less than $3 grand? It's like $2,800 or something like that. And so this is option one. I've been really reluctant to take it off the car, but I have two loves, and my second love is Dundon. Actually, Dundon's my first love. AWE is my second love on these cars. And so the Dundon setup is on a whole different level, price-wise, power-wise, engineering-wise. For instance, this is using T304, this is using T321. You know, 321, less prone to cracking and heat cycling because Dundon's on the track all the time. They're interested in that. My AWE friends probably are on the track too sometimes, but they're not track rats like the Dundon folks are. Dundons are building strokers, and they've been, they do nothing but Porsches. AWE makes exhaust for cars all over the place, or all different types of cars. So the Dundon setup we're going to go through here today and install. It's going to make, somewhere in the 25 to 35 horsepower range at the wheels because of scavenging and equal length headers and how they've tuned the system. This is a now catted system. The system that I've had in the past on my other two GT3s, my blue one and my 991.1 white car, the 2016, were catless. Catless on a GT3 is not a good idea. It freaking turns the whole back of the car yellow. It stains it, and it won't even polish off. And so I'm doing cats only from here on out, and it's just less problematic. And now the way they've engineered these systems, the catless doesn't make any more power than the catted, so there's no reason to do that. And you don't have to worry about check engine lights and things like that. So what this system is comprised of is a new header. So this header replaces the stock header, and you'll notice the stock header was a side exit, where this is a or the stock header had a 90 as a turn, where this is a straight side exit, which goes up into the wheel well where the past rear or side muffler was. And we'll show you this. So this goes up into the wheel well. Then we connect to our cat pipe. You can see how significant that is. This is all 3-inch piping, 3-inch collectors, and we have a 200 CEL, big old monster catalytic converter there, and then that connects to our side muffler delete, or our side pipe, or our cat exit pipe, and this has a 2-inch section and a 3-inch section. When the valves open, this 3-inch section is where some of the additional sound is created, as well as some additional power. And then we're replacing the factory center muffler with the Dundon really ugly brick. This is the lifetime center muffler. I've actually cleaned this up with this freaking crazy, you gotta go watch this video. This is called Osfo. And then the green stuff, and I used some quadruple aught steel wool. And this has like 10,000 miles, catless miles on it, something like that. I think this thing has quite a bit of time on the car, and it was completely yellow and soot covered, and you can't tell which is new and which is old from that Osfo stuff. But go make sure you check out that video looking at how we cleaned this thing up with that Osfo product. And then this then connects some tips. So let's just get into it and start working on it. I cheated on you. I already took this apart. A couple of key points I want to point out to you is things that I've learned with the AWE, and then things I've learned with those doing the first side of the headers here on the RS. So here's the underside of the car. Notice I've turned it around here so I can access the tools. I should do this more often. It's just a pain to line it up on the lift. A couple of things to point out here. I'm able to do this a little easier this time around. If you're doing an exhaust for the first time on a GT3, I've got 9 videos of me taking the bumper cover off, showing you how to do that. It's really easy. Bumper covers are problematic on every other car. Like, you have to really be somewhat mechanical to take it off and put it back on. I'm telling you, this will come off and go back on exactly the way it came off. There's no car like this on the planet, like a Porsche, where it comes apart and goes back together. Even if you have minimal mechanical skills, I think it's like 7 or 8 fasteners on each side, and the whole bumper pops off and it'll pop right back on. All the heat shields will go back on identically the way they were before. And so I've had this bumper off in the past in order to do the AWE. And the main reason why you would need to take the cover off is to get the side mufflers out, because they won't fit. So you need to take the rear wheels off and the bumper cover off. We don't need to do that here today. So go check out the other videos of me installing the AWE exhaust or installing one of the various other exhausts that I've done. So a couple of things to point out. One of the things I noticed on the AWE, I had this exhaust on my previous gen GT3 RS. And they send, so you see this bracket here? So this is designed to bolt to the H bracket on the car. And what I found on my previous RS, when I was in the mountains and really beating on the car and heat cycling the exhaust, it would get a resonance through the chassis, through your butt, through your spine. And so what I tried on this version is, and I would suggest this, I bent these back. These are supposed to be flat and they stick out a little more. So I bent them back, making sure they weren't touching. And I just floated this. So this was just floating, basically floating off of the, and connected via the side muffler deletes into the cat. AWE doesn't recommend that, but I wanted to try it out. So I put, probably about 3,000 miles on it this way with this car, and I never had any chassis resonance, and there was no issue. So the concern would be that headers could crack if you're going to the track a lot and things like that. But my wussy driving around town, you don't have to worry about it. So if you are going to do the AWE, my suggestion, just depending on how, what kind of driving you're doing, if you're not doing a lot of track stuff, I would suggest letting it float. just maybe even taking this bracket off, just get it out of the way, and because the exhaust is secured with clamps all the way across. So that's one thing to note. Another thing, I haven't had factory headers on this long before. And so the header bolts, the header studs started to get, kind of bound up a bit. So they're a little harder to get out. So the very first bolt I took out, the stud came out with the bolt. And so then I sprayed some PB Blast on all the others, and that left the header studs stay in. You don't want the stud to come out because it makes it so much more difficult to get back in. Because there's not a lot of room to put, 2 nuts on in order to get something to lock it in place. And then I got the 2 nuts on, and then I couldn't get the nuts off. And so that's another little point to note on this. So I've already done this side. So this side is set up, the bracket's set up. I did this side so that I could cheat here on the video and not look like such an idiot like I normally do. But I haven't done a set of catted headers on any of the Dundon stuff. So this is my first set. The catless just comes out straight and goes right into the rear section. The catted version, in order to get the scavenging they're hoping to get in order to make power, they're utilizing the old side muffler space. So you can see the headers come out, then they go into our cat pipe, our little catted connection, and then we utilize the OE bracket. So I had to put these back on because we weren't using these for the AWE setup. And then this will come down into the center section. So let's work on the other side here and get it installed. So step 1, don't put the gasket on first. We want to make sure that we get the header lined up, and you have to do some manipulation. So what I generally do is just make sure, because these are spring loaded and they're somewhat adjustable and they get kind of tweaked in shipping generally. So you want to make sure you kind of muscle it in place before you put, and I already did that earlier, so I did have to kind of tweak this a little bit in order to get it to fit. So I would suggest you not do that with the gasket on, because you don't want to damage the gasket, because you do need this. This is I'm just reusing the OE gasket. They don't send you a new gasket because you really don't need one. Just get that to sit there. You can. Like that. Slide our header in place. Sorry, I'm gonna get in your way for a second here. We're gonna reuse the same hardware, and there's 9 of them. These ones. So these, this stuff is built in. They build it in just outside Seattle, in Bellevue. I think it's Bellevue is where he is. I've been there. And they're not just welding shiny pipes together. These guys are the real deal. A bunch of engineers that love Porsches have gotten together to build something special. These ones on the top are a little more tricky to get on here because of the header pipe's a little bit bigger than stock. Once you get it started, then you can get your socket on there. I found that these are easier to access from the inside through the bottom plate, this bracket that holds your bottom engine cover on, or your little splitter. You can reach it through this way. And just get it started by your fingers, and then you can go and tighten it when it's. This is the one that's a little trickier to get to. But this install, I'm telling you, when I was younger, I thought, man, I'm gonna have to make sure when if I can finally afford a Porsche that I could afford to hire people to work on them, because man, they're gonna be. I just assumed, since it was a lot of money, that you wouldn't want to work on it. Well, shoot, these are the most enjoyable cars to work on. They're so freaking easy. They're so well engineered that I couldn't imagine. There's no reason to buy a freaking service contract on one of these cars. There's no service. There's nothing to do. You change the oil, change the plugs at 11,000 miles. That's about it. Maybe later in life there's some service to do, but I've never had one of these long enough to to even matter. But it's such a great thing to work on. It's so freaking easy. It's awesome. I don't know what the torque spec is. It doesn't freaking matter. Just tighten it. You don't have to lay into it, but just do one of those. I find it so funny when everybody gets all torque specky on me. I mean, you guys saw Eb work on the M3. He didn't use a freaking torque wrench on anything. There's certain things that you really need to get somewhat precise, but most things you can just, I know what it took to take it off, so I use a similar amount to tighten it on. Just kind of get it close. Okay, now let's lower the car down a little bit, because now we got to put this piece on. So again, I had to put the factory bracket back on. We're going to use 4 of these bolts that they supply, 4 nuts, and then 4 washers. So, and I put it on the front side of the bracket like this. There's probably instructions for this, but I ain't got time for that. Okay, so they want washers on both sides. So I still want it to move, but I don't want it to be flopping around. Okay, so now you kind of need a buddy to help you with this part. We're gonna alley-oop this little, whatever these call, little donut gasket. Sits in a little channel. Something doesn't seem right. What am I doing wrong here?
You got your fire thingy in there, ring donut?
Yeah. All right, that's on. Now slide this puppy over. Make sure I want to do this. There we go. So I'm thinking we want to keep this somewhat loose because we're going to have to adjust it. Good. Okay, that's loose. I'm going to loosen this up and tighten this down a bit too much. Yeah, I think I'm going to put these into the, we'll connect these in and then I can pole jack it up there. So first thing we got to do is put our end pieces on. And like that. That's how that's going. These are the 3-inch gaskets, hopefully. So that goes in there. Like so. And then they sent us some new hardware. We'll just loosely put these on. These two, so you can see why this little groove is here, so that these can sneak past one another like that. There. So everything will pull into place now. Yeah, they're in all the way. Still don't fully comprehend how this works.
I can see how it works now. So when you tighten these down, it squeezes that gasket so it's a conical shape.
Oh, yeah, and it pushes it in.
So it pushes it. When you push down on it, it squeezes it.
Yeah. So we're gonna have to go a little bit, we'll go tight enough where it still wiggles, but not so tight that we can't still adjust.
Medium tight. Dang, is that the high-speed ratchet on obsessedgarage.com?
Well, yes it is, Bryce.
Oh wow, that thing's fast.
Love me these pole jacks, man. Where they've been my whole life. I use this thing more than anything. Tell you what, it makes it so much freaking easier.
It's like we're a legitimate little shop here.
Wait till I get my mounting and balancing.
Getting there.
These facing down. So this goes over the H bracket and around. Clamps on. Something doesn't, oh, it needs to go up higher.
Yeah, but we need to get these donuts.
Yeah, okay. We'll do this
Before we
first.
go any higher, we're never going to go.
Get up. Okay. I think that's the way these bands go. Why does it feel like it's so close to the bumper? I feel like I normally have more room than that. Get this up in there somehow. I don't remember this being, oh, that's because I normally put it on without the bumper on. That's why. This makes it a little bit more difficult to do since we're not.
They try and do it by hand. There we go.
All right.
Push up on it.
You frickin'. Let's line up my tips here first. So these tips have a large opening or a hole, so you have room to adjust it left to right. So once again, normally you'd be doing all this with the bumper cover off, which would make it a lot easier. But the extra 2 minutes of work versus the half an hour it takes the bumper cover off, I think is worth the trade-off. Looking pretty centered. I mean, there's a center line on our PPF, and that bolt is pretty darn centered. So I think I'm going to tighten these down first. So let's pull this thing out. Okay, so now let's tighten down our V-bands. I'll go back and tighten them by hand afterward. So you do the old reverse twist-a-roo method. Twist it the opposite direction a bunch of times. Put it in, and then try to get it to line up without cross-threading. That is not real happy. Okay, that's in. Now, that stays on level. Tighten all these down. Let's get our other O2 sensor up in there. Let's give that a little calibrated wrist torque. Make sure that stays up and out of the way. No, what the heck are they? It kind of fits and then kind of doesn't. It's not. Yeah. You can get like 2 clicks. Without the bumper on, this takes like 10 seconds. Now, a lot of times on these, on Dundon headers, we'll have a check engine light for a little while. We'll see if it comes on, but even though they're catted and they're street headers, it sometimes takes a few ignition cycles for you to Get rid of the check engine light. Just look at our tip alignment. Oh yeah, I like these tips way better. I mean, the AWs are nice, but these 4-inch, or maybe these are 5-inch. I think they're 5. Look better than the 4.
All clear.
It's not warm yet.
It sounds more mechanical now or something.
All right, I think that's a wrap. I mean, we're good. It's the first time in a while I put an exhaust on. Now, in fairness, I've already had this exhaust before on a different car. But it really pronounces the speed at which the .2 downshifts, which you really didn't hear on camera, but I heard when I was driving around. That immediate pulse, that snap into the next gear that the PDKS has on whatever the new tuning is in the .2. D-cell sounds a lot different on this than it does with the factory headers. You can't tell horsepower right off the bat, but I'm sure the car would probably pull on a regular .1, and it's going to take some, or .2. It's going to take some time for it to adapt. But yeah, this is the exhaust to get if you can swing the cost. I mean, you figure you have. Was it $9,000 for the headers and another three or four for the center muffler? So you're 12, 13,000 bucks go to Dundon site. But there's a lot more R&D, a lot more goes into this exhaust setup. This is the one. This is the exhaust setup you want for the car if you can swing it. So yeah, the AW is a great option. This I think is the best option for the car. So. We'll do some flybys and some in-car stuff in the future. But thanks for watching, and go check out Dundon's website, dundonmotorsports.com. Follow them on Instagram. My good friends Charles and Jamie, who own and run the company. It's great to see. They're about as OG spec gets. So thanks for watching. See you soon.